The first couple looks actually at this year's Battle of Alberta both ended in similar results, but that doesn't mean we didn't see some reassuring or positive signs in the games last night. I'll talk about all of that, but first, we keep marching towards 2,000 subscribers. As of recording, we're actually less than 20 away, so if you like what you've seen, hit the subscribe button and maybe we can reach that goal before our next video. That would be insane. Getting into last night's hockey, I'm going to start with the game in Edmonton, the game that no doubt had significantly more of an NHL flavor with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman, Leon Draisaitl, Vasily Podkolzin, Corey Perry, Matthias Ekholm, Evan Bouchard, and Calvin Pickard all in the lineup for the game at Rogers Place. The biggest standout to me wasn't an NHLer though, and I'll get to that after we talk about what actually happened in the game. Calgary opened the scoring with Jan Kuznetsov cashing in on what ended up being the third rebound. This is just one of those bad goals you're going to concede in preseason. If you stop the goal here, they look to be in okay shape, but it's Noah Phillips' gap control the big problem. And once the pass gets through to Huberdeau, Edmonton was in trouble. You can see how wide open Kuznetsov is, and eventually it's 1-0. Calgary had 27-year-old Devin Cooley in the net for the whole game, who made so many great saves. Here's one of the best of his 44, denying Corey Perry the equalizer on this 2-on-1, and Calgary had a 2-on-1 of their own not long after, and Alex Kanik-Leeper just couldn't handle Anthony Mantha and Jonathan Huberdeau and Calvin Pickard in the end. He had no chances, 2-0. Cooley's stop on Perry in the first, again, like I said, that was far from his last big save of the game, and this might have been his best, off of Raphael Lavoie in front of the net with a great effort to get his stick or his glove on that puck on the way by. I'm going to talk more about Lavoie after, but he must have thought he'd made it 2 goals in 2 preseason games right there in front, and it didn't take long for it to be 3-0 Calgary after that. Huberdeau notches his 3rd assist of the game with his great feed up to Rasmus Andersson. He beats Pickard with a perfectly placed bomb from the point. It's 4-0, and not long after, to make it 4-0, make that probably one goal that Calvin Pickard would like to have back. Matt Coronado just beats him under the blocker there. Raphael Lavoie had to jump to his step after Coronado scored, and he had 2 big chances to get the Oilers on the board right after. The first was a breakaway that Cooley denied with a pad, and the second was a good save by Cooley with a blocker on a Lavoie one-timer after the Draisaitl cross-ice pass. And Devin Cooley made a great save off Draisaitl himself here, but in that preamble, Brett Brochu's first big save of the game as well. He came in relief for Calvin Pickard halfway through. Zach Hyman finally got the Oilers on the board with McDavid sliding a pass into his stride on the odd man rush. Cooley made another unreal save off Lavoie late in the third, but the Oilers would make it 4-2. It was a deflected cross-ice pass, Noel Hoffenmeyer's crossfeed, looking like it was going all the way through before it hit the skate of Joni Jurmo and went into the back of the net. Edmonton's chances at a comeback were killed in the water just 32 seconds after that goal, though. Samuel Honzek deserves all the plaudits for this cross-ice pass, a great feed. Coronado makes no mistake, it's 5-2. Justin Kirkland scored on a rebound short after to make it 6-2, and while Rogers Place got one more thing to celebrate about off the stick of Connor McDavid after, Devin Cooley would make sure that was it with 3 huge saves after that 6-3 goal. The first off Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the following 2 off of Raphael Lavoie. If you want 2 things to tell you how this game really went, here they are. Edmonton controlled it and outshot Calgary. That's their first stat, 47-26. But Devin Cooley's first star performance won it for Calgary. What a game from the goaltender. Final score 6-3 Flames. Staying on this game for a while, we have to talk about Raphael Lavoie because honestly, wow, this was probably the best I'd seen him play with the Oilers crest on his chest. He had 7 shots on goal, and if Devin Cooley hadn't resembled prime Carey Price last night, he easily could have had a multi-goal game. He won board battles, he passed the puck well, he utilized his best attribute, which was his shot. He tested Cooley 7 times with shots on target. He managed to score against Winnipeg with it in the preseason opener, but this version of Raphael Lavoie is one that could easily find a stop in Edmonton's top 12 at some point this season. Here's the thing, though. Lavoie played the entire game with Leon Draisaitl, and Calgary's defense featured only one guy that's likely to feature in their top 8 for this upcoming season. And as Elliot Friedman has put it in the past, exhibition games often result in this being, quote, overreaction season. And expecting Lavoie to be a top 6 forward all year because of this one game fits into that category. Lavoie isn't going to play a full season of NHL games like the one he just did, but him having a breakout this season, or at least breaking into the Oilers lineup, wouldn't necessarily come out of nowhere. He was a pretty highly touted prospect. TSN had him ranked at 19th for the 2019 NHL draft going in, which was far from the highs that any outlet had him. He had 20 goals in 23 Quebec Major Junior playoff games for Halifax in his draft year, and he went on to win gold with Canada at the 2020 World Juniors. And since he finished his junior career, he actually has steadily improved in Bakersfield every year he's played. He got his 7-game cameo last year, but with the news of Evander Kane's surgery late last week, there is a path for a Lavoie opportunity in this Oilers team, especially if what they need is a top 6 winger. Moving on to the second game yesterday, the bulk of the Oilers NHLers that appeared in Edmonton on Monday, meaning the game in Calgary was with a more AHL-heavy squad, in contrast to a Calgary team who had at least 9 surefire NHLers on the ice for the game. It was an evenly fought first period, and it saw Mike Hoffman and Nazem Kadri trade goals to make it 1-1 through 20, but the final 40 minutes was all Calgary, with the Flames outshooting Edmonton 25-10 and outscoring them 5-0, led by 2 goals each from Connor Zary and Yegor Sharangovich. Hoffman has been really involved offensively, and he contributed against Calgary. But as far as Mike Hoffman goes, I would still call it highly unlikely that we see the 34-year-old stick around following his PTO. Mike Hoffman's MO has been pretty obvious for the last few years of his NHL career. And unfortunately for Hoffman, he's going to fall into the category of somebody that is no longer good enough offensively to contribute in a top 6 role, but he doesn't do enough defensively and in his own zone to justify keeping him on the lineup, potentially in a role lower down the lineup. This is a guy who does all his offensive work mostly on the power play and doesn't contribute too much 5-on-5. And for the Edmonton Oilers, you sign guys like Jeff Skinner, Victor Arvidsson, and even we're looking at Raphael Lavoie right now as options for players who could move into those top 6 roles if they need to. Vasily Podkolzin is another one that has a ton of offensive upside, but plays a game that is tailor-made to a third-line role, at least in my opinion right now. So I'd personally much rather see somebody like Podkolzin given this opportunity rather than keeping Mike Hoffman around on his PTO. And I believe the forward core is strong enough to cover for his absence. And at the end of the day, the other thing too, if any move is to be made by these Edmonton Oilers, you have to assume that it is still going to be from a top 4 defenseman. We've seen, again, in these 2 games, Lavoie has stood out, but for me, there hasn't been a defenseman that I've seen play that has stamped his spot on that second pairing or in the top 6 or top 7. Realistically, that was going to be unlikely based on the personnel that the Edmonton Oilers had at camp, but I still think that Stan Bowman, his number one task should be acquire another top 6 defenseman, preferably somebody you're comfortable slotting in to that number 4 spot. Edmonton lose 2 games to Calgary. Again, like I said, there's a reason some call this overreaction season, so let's not jump to any conclusions so far, but the big takeaway for me was how well Raphael Lavoie played in that first game. That's going to be all for me today. Thank you so much for watching.